This is Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Serving a population of 4.4 million people, a network of subway and light rail lines connects this U.S. city, servicing 109 stations across 6 counties in 2 states. Consisting of 12 lines and 102 miles of track, the system travels across Philadelphia, with trains and trolleys radiating from Center City to the suburbs. But how did the system grow from its original stations to the network it is today? My name's Zach, and this is the evolution of the network. Thanks to my subscribers who helped research and provided footage for this video. You can find links to some of their social media in the description below. Philadelphia's modern transit network began to form in August 1895, when the Philadelphia and Westchester Traction Company opened a steam-powered trolley line west of the city. The new line ran from 63rd Street in Upper Darby west on the Westchester Pike, ending in Newtown Square. Proving successful, the line was electrified the following May, speeding up service on the route. 3 years later, in January 1899, the line was extended further west along the Pike, ending in the east end of Westchester at Adams Street. 6 months later in June, however, the line was extended into downtown Westchester, now turning back at High Street. A second trolley line was launched in May 1902, with the Philadelphia and Westchester Traction Company operating service to Ardmore. Running from the existing line on the Westchester Pike, the new route traveled north along a private right-of-way, ending on Sheldon Lane at Elm Avenue. This line also proved successful, and was extended 3 years later in September 1905 to the Ardmore Railway Station, allowing passengers to access commuter trains into the city. Around the same time, the private right-of-way was extended, removing a section of street running along Darby Road. 4 months later, in December 1905, a streetcar subway was opened in Center City, Philadelphia, helping to relieve congestion along Market Street and at City Hall. The new private right-of-way serviced a ground-level station at 24th Street, before descending into a portal to service underground stops at 19th and 15th Streets. A third trolley line launched the following year in March, adding service to new developments south of the Westchester Pike. The line followed the existing tracks from 63rd Street to Garrett Road, before running in a private right-of-way to Clifton Heights. Philadelphia's first subway began operating in March 1907, running along an elevated track above Market Street. Starting from 69th Street, the Market line ran east to 15th Street, servicing 6 intermediate stations along the route. 3 more stations were opened throughout the following month, bringing the total to 11. The following month in April, trolleys were extended south from Clifton Heights, now ending at the Clifton-Alden Railway Station. At the same time, all trolleys were cut back from 63rd Street, now ending at the Market Line station at 69th. A shuttle trolley continued to run between 63rd and 69th Streets, allowing passengers to access shops along Market Street. 1 month later, in May, a new rapid transit line was launched by the Philadelphia and Western Railway, connecting with the Market Line at 69th Street. Running in a dedicated right-of-way, the line ran west to Stratford, making 12 intermediate stops en route. The line interchanged with the Ardmore trolley at Ardmore Junction, providing a transfer point between the 2 services. In June, the Clifton Heights trolley was extended further south to Providence Road in Alden, before being extended to Collingdale the following month. Additional stations were opened on the Philadelphia and Western Railway in early 1908, with new stops at West Overbrook, Windward Road, and Haverford College. That August, the Market line was extended east, adding 4 new stations to 2nd Street. With this change, the streetcar subway was also extended east, now terminating in an underground loop at Juniper Street. An infill station was added to the Market line 3 weeks after opening, with trains now stopping at 11th Street. Further sections of the Market line opened in September, with a one-stop eastward extension to Market Chestnut Station. Finally, in October, a final one-stop extension brought the line to South Street, providing connections to ferries across the Delaware River. A further infill station opened on the Philadelphia and Western Railway near the end of the year, with trains now stopping in Penfield. In January 1911, the suburban trolley shuttle between 69th Street and 63rd Street was discontinued, with trolleys from Philadelphia being extended along the route in its place. 10 months later in October, the Philadelphia and Western Railway was extended to the Stratford Railway Station, with the previous end station being renamed to Sugartown Road. A second branch of the line opened 10 months later in August 1912, branching off north after Villanova Station. The extension serviced 4 new stops to Norristown, crossing the Schuylkill River on a newly constructed bridge. The Philadelphia and Westchester Traction Company opened a 4th line in April 1913, branching off from the Collingdale line in Drexel Hill. The line ran on a private right-of-way to Media, ending at Orange Street. 4 years later, in August 1917, the Collingdale line was extended further south, now ending at the Chester Pike in Sharon Hill. More stations were added to the Philadelphia and Western Railway in 1920, with a new station on the Norristown branch at Conshohocken Road. At the same time, the DeKalb Street Station 2 stops north was renamed, now being referred to as King Road Station. 2 years later, in November 1922, a second branch of the Market Line opened, branching off from the East End past 2nd Street. The new Frankford Line ran north to Bridge Pratt Station, servicing 11 intermediate stops en route. In 1923, Beechwood Park Station on the Philadelphia and Western Railway was renamed to Beechwood Brookline, reflecting the closure of the Beechwood Amusement Park. A new station also opened on the Norristown branch of the line in August 1925, with trains now stopping at Hughes Park. The following year, the adjacent station at King Road was also renamed, now being referred to as King Manor. In April 1928, 2 stations on the Stratford branch were also renamed, with St. David's becoming Wayne St. David's and Wayne becoming West Wayne. Philadelphia's second subway began operation in September 1928, with trains beginning on the Broad Street line. Starting from Onley Station, the line ran south under Broad Street to City Hall, servicing 11 intermediate stops en route. The line provided an interchange to the Market Frankfort line and streetcar subway at 15th Street Station, allowing passengers to connect to east-west services in Center City. An additional station was added to the Broad Street line the following March, with trains now stopping at Fairmount. On the Norristown branch of the Philadelphia and Western Railway, a new station opened at County Line in August 1929, improving access to the surrounding area. The Broad Street line was extended 2 stops south in April 1930, with new stations opening at Walnut Locust and Lombard South. 1 month later, in May, a second streetcar subway was opened under the approach to the Delaware River Bridge, allowing northbound trolleys to avoid heavy traffic at the bridge's western plaza. A second branch of the Broad Street line opened 2 years later in December 1932, connecting from Girard Station to the 8th Street Station on the Market Frankfort line. This new line serviced 2 new stations at Spring Garden and Ray's Vine, while sharing 2 existing stations with the Broad Street line. On the Philadelphia and Western Railway, a new station was added at Stadium in 1933, providing game day access to the nearby Villanova Stadium. 2 stations were added to the Stratford branch in July 1934, with Lancaster Avenue opening at the beginning of the month, followed by South Devon Avenue a few weeks later. The streetcar subway under 5th Avenue was relocated slightly east in May 1935, allowing an underground station to be constructed at Vine Street. 1 month later in June, an infill station opened on the Stratford branch of the Philadelphia and Western Railway, with trains now stopping at Maplewood Road. A third subway line opened the following year in June 1936, linking Center City, Philadelphia with Camden, New Jersey. The new bridge line serviced 3 new stations from Broadway to 8th and Market, offering an interchange to the Ridge 8th line and Market Frankfort line. More infill stations were opened on the Philadelphia and Western Railway, with a new Stratford branch station at Willowburn being put into service in 1938. That September, another southward extension of the Broad Street line was opened, adding 3 additional stations to Snyder. Due to declining ferry traffic caused by the opening of the bridge line, the Market Frankfort line branch to South Street was closed in May 1939, with the 2 stations at South Street and Market Chestnut being demolished. 2 months later in July, Franklin Square Station on the bridge line was also closed, having experienced low ridership since its opening. The Philadelphia Transit Network stayed relatively consistent through the Second World War, with the next change coming 10 years later in June 1949. At that time, trains on the Ridge 8th line were extended to Broadway Station in Camden, replacing bridge line service at all times. 3 years later, in April 1952, Franklin Square Station on the Ridge 8th line was reopened, attempting to attract more ridership to the system. A new section of subway opened under Locust Street the following year in February 1953, adding 3 new stations through Center City. With this change, the Bridge Line restarted operation, running from 1516th Street in Locust to Broadway Station in Camden. Franklin Square Station was closed shortly afterwards, having failed to generate significant ridership since reopening. That fall, a new station opened on the Philadelphia and Western Railway, with trains now stopping at Parkview. Further north, Gulf Station on the Northtown branch was relocated and renamed in January 1954, now being referred to as Gulf Mills. Trolley service to Westchester was cut back in June 1954, coinciding with the widening of the Westchester Pike. Rush hour service continued as far as Westgate Hills, with the rest of the line being replaced by buses. On the Philadelphia and Western Railway, a new station was added to the Norristown branch in 1955, with trains now stopping at Radnor-Wyeth. That October, a portion of the Market Frankfort line was moved underground, requiring new stations to be constructed. With the first phase, eastbound trolleys in the subway were extended underground to 2 new portals, with cars surfacing at 36th Street and 40th Street. 5 new underground stations were serviced along this stretch, speeding up travel times for this section of the system. At the end of October, the Market Frankfort line was also moved underground, with 3 elevated stations east of 46th Street being replaced by 3 underground ones. Finally, in November, westbound trolleys were also moved into the tunnel, resulting in the station at 24th Street being closed. With the new tunnel in full operation, skip-stop operations were implemented on the line in January 1956, with some rush hour trains skipping 13 stations to better distribute passenger loads. 40th Street was reverted back to an all-stop station shortly afterwards, although we are unable to confirm an exact date. Due to declining ridership in March 1956, the Stratford branch of the Philadelphia and Western Railway was discontinued, closing the 10 stations west of Villanova. Additionally, the name of the Norristown branch station at Radnor-Wyeth was simplified to Radnor, with the station of the same name on the Stratford branch having been closed. 5 months later in September, a one-stop extension of the Broad Street line was opened, bringing the line to its present terminus at Fern Rock. On the Philadelphia and Western Railway, Haverford College Station was closed 2 years later in 1958, with the nearby station at Haverford being expanded in its place. In August of that year, rush hour service on the Westgate Hills line ended, with the tracks remaining in place to access a nearby car barn. Express service began on the Broad Street line in September 1959, using a newly constructed set of tracks between Erie and Lombard South stations. 4 stations on the line were bypassed by the new express trips, while additional local trains were added to supplement service. At the same time, service on the Ridge 8th line was extended north to Erie, providing additional local service on this stretch. Trolleys on the Ardmore line were discontinued 7 years later in December 1966, owing to declining ridership on the route. However, a portion of the route was converted into a busway the following March, servicing 5 of the former streetcar stations along a private right-of-way. Bridge Line service was extended further into New Jersey in January 1969, adding 6 additional stations to Lindenwold. At the same time, the line was rebranded to the PATCO Speed Line, providing a high-speed connection between New Jersey and Center City, Philadelphia. A final 2-stop extension of the Broad Street line opened 4 years later in April 1973, bringing the line to its present terminus at Pattison. 2 years later, in November 1975, Chestnut Street in Center City was converted to a transitway, pedestrianizing this popular shopping area. The street was rebuilt as part of this conversion, with wider sidewalks and dedicated transit stops along the route. The following year, in May 1976, Franklin Square Station on the PATCO Speed Line was reopened for a 3rd time, attempting to capitalize on increased ridership from the route. In May 1977, the Market Frankfort Line station at Fairmount was closed for construction of a freeway, being replaced by an adjacent station at Spring Garden. Ridership at the Franklin Square Station on the PATCO Speed Line failed to materialize, with the stop being shuttered once again in September 1979. However, near the opposite end of the line, an infill station opened in February 1980, with trains now stopping at Woodcrest. In October, trolley service through the 5th Street Tunnel ended, closing the underground station at Vine Street. The old platform is still visible inside the tunnel, which remains open to cars and bikes to this day. Express service on the Broad Street line was revised in January 1983, with trains being extended north to Onley and skipping more stops further south. Logan, Wyoming, and Hunting Park became local only at the north end of the line, while north of City Hall, Spring Garden and Ray's Vine were now also bypassed by express trains. That September, Ray's Vine Station on the Broad Ridge Spur was also renamed, now referencing its surrounding neighborhood of Chinatown. The stations on the Broad Ridge Spur continued to experience low ridership, however, with the adjacent stop at Spring Garden being closed 6 years later in September 1989. While the stop has been closed off at street level, the platforms are still visible from passing trains and have sat abandoned ever since. On the Broad Street line, Columbia Station was renamed in 1990, following the renaming of its namesake Columbia Avenue to Cecil B. Moore Avenue. On the Market Frankfort line, 2nd Street and Spring Garden stations were changed to all-stop stations, removing their skip-stop designation during rush hours. A similar change was made on the Broad Street line in December 1991, with Ray's Vine Station now being serviced by express trips. Operations of the Broad Ridge Spur were extended north in October 1992, bringing trains to Onley. At the same time, service between Erie and Girard was revised to travel along the express tracks, skipping all stops besides North Philadelphia. However, this change was modified the following year in May, with the line being extended one stop north to Fern Rock and reverting back to making all local stops. More stop changes were made in September 1994, with 34th Street on the Market Frankfort line changing to an all-stop station, and Spring Garden on the Broad Street line now being serviced by express trains. On the Northtown High-Speed line, Conshohocken Road Station was renamed in October 1995, now being referred to by its present name of Matsonford. Service on the Broad Street line was revised once again in October 1997 in order to increase the frequency of express trains. Broad Ridge trains were cut back to end at Erie, while express trains now began stopping at North Philadelphia. However, this arrangement proved short-lived, with Broad Ridge trains being extended back to Fern Rock that December and being changed to make limited stops north of Girard. In addition, Broad Street line express trains no longer service North Philadelphia Station. However, this remained a stop on the Broad Ridge line. Plagued with complaints of declining retail sales, the Chestnut Street Transitway was removed in March 1999, with buses resuming travel and mixed traffic. 4 years later, in August 2003, the terminal station of the Market Frankfort line was reconstructed, changing its name from Bridge Pratt to Frankfort. New Jersey Transit launched a new light rail line in March 2004, with the new River Line connecting Camden with Trenton, New Jersey. The line serviced 20 new stations between Trenton Transit Center and downtown Camden, including interchange to the PATCO Speed Line at Broadway. On the Market Frankfort line, 46th Street became an all-stop station in June 2007, improving frequency of trains to the station. In June 2010, the Broad Street line station at Pattison was renamed to AT&T, sharing its name with the adjacent sports complex. That September, various stations on the Northtown High-Speed line were also renamed, with West Overbrook becoming Township Line Road, Rosemont becoming Roberts Road, Stadium referencing the nearby Ithan Avenue, and Kings Manor reverting back to its original name of DeKalb Street. The following year, 13th Street Juniper Station was simplified to 13th Street, removing references to the separate station. In October 2013, an infill station was added to the River Line, with trains now stopping at Pennsauken Transit Center. 5th Street Station on the Market Frankfort line was renamed in June 2016, now referencing the nearby Independence Hall. In 2018, 2 additional stops were renamed, with the Broad Street line station at AT&T changing sponsors to NRG, and the Market Frankfort line station at Market Orthodox becoming Arrowhead, after its adjacent transit center. Finally, in February 2020, skip-stop service on the Market Frankfort line was eliminated, with all trains resuming and making all stops in rush hours. This brings us to the Philadelphia Rapid Transit map that we know today. In the years to come, new stations are planned for the Philadelphia subway network, improving access to some developing neighborhoods. In April 2024, the PATCO Speedline station at Franklin Square will reopen for the 4th time, servicing new developments around the station site. That was the evolution of Philadelphia's subway and light rail network, giving us the 12 lines that we know today. If you haven't already, be sure to watch our video on the evolution of Philadelphia's regional rail network, which you can access by clicking the button in the top right corner. Don't forget to leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and comment down below to join in the discussion. My name's Zach, and I'll be vanishing underground until the next one.